Hey folks, today we're going to try and use deprecation date config to remove models that have contracts on them. This can be a little bit complicated. And you can see here, this is the page about model governance. There's something that we call out here, which is if you start using, model governance features such as contracts and access and versions and stuff, it will become quite tedious to actually remove them. So you want to make sure that you are ready for it before you try and add all of these contracts and model governance features to your DBT project. Now, let's have a look at our current setup. So we have got a full model here, which is being used by a bar model downstream. So it just selects from full. What's notable about this is that we have got a full model with a contract enforcement. And then you can see here, we've got a version 1 as well. So I'll show you one of the jobs that I have, my production job here. So you can see here, the production job, when it runs daily or what have you, we will build full V1 and then we build bar selecting from full. Okay, so everything is kind of as we expect, right? Now, one of the common things that we want to do is perhaps your business has changed and then we no longer want to use full, right? So in our bar model, let's assume that we want to switch out the business logic. Instead of selecting from full, we want to select from a brand new model called BAS. So we're going to do something like this in our development environment. So we're going to add that BAS thing, and then we're going to change this to select from BAS. And then commonly as well, folks, what they will do is they're going to actually kind of delete this full stuff and then delete the schema as well. Because why should we have that, right? If we no longer use the full model, then we don't have a point. Well, having this serves no purpose, right? Okay, so that's kind of what we think. So we have this is the project YAML setup, nothing too special to it. We've got bar, selecting from BAS. And everything is fine so far, right? So we can kind of build it in our dev environment. And then we will see that everything builds as expected, right? So we've got BAS going on, we've got bar going on, everything is hunky-dory. So let's go ahead and try to run a CI job. Change from full to BAS, right? Okay, so I'm going to create this branch and commit, and then we are going to open up a pull request on GitHub. Now, before I do that, let's check that we have a CI job set up. Okay, we've got CI job here, and the CI job is going to do state modified. Let's make it do state modified plus. Okay, so this CI job will open, will kick off when we create a pull request. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So the change here would be complete removal of full, removal of the schema with all this version stuff in it, and then adding the BAS, and bar is going to select from BAS now. So you would think that this will kind of work without issue. So let's go ahead and try that. Okay. So when we create the PR, then DBT kicks off a CI job, which we can go ahead and look. So this is running. And you can see here, we have deferred to the production job, which I showed earlier. This build full V1 and bar, right? So let's see what happens to our CI job. And we got an error here, right? So let's see what that error is. Aha. So if you just remove full completely, then DBT is going to warn you that, hey, there's a breaking change to a contract, right? Because you have removed full completely, then in our CI job, DBT is going to detect and say, hey, there's a breaking change here. Please make sure you kind of fix this scenario. Okay, so let's see how we can kind of completely make sure that foo is removed entirely from our DBT project. So first, this is what we got to do. Let's go back to production. So which is our main. And the first thing we need to do is essentially, we have to set a deprecation date. So normally this is set to something in the future, right? So for example, now it's the 9th of May. So we set it to say something like the 5th, right? However, in this case, I am completely wanting to remove foo entirely from my project right now, right? I don't want foo anymore. I simply don't want it to exist. So what we can do is set it to some sort of date in the past. So I'm going to do something like this. And that's the only change I'm going to make in this case, right? So make deprecate. Okay. So I'll just add the deprecation date here. I'll commit this, and I will get a new branch. And this is the only change. So I'm going to run a CI job with just this. And go back to our CI job and look at the most latest one, which would be PR number 45. Yep. So you can see PR 45. This one has run to completion. So our CI job, which was just this singular change, which is to add the deprecation date, has finished completely, right? So what we can do then is we can merge this into production. Okay. So if we look at our production code base, we now have foo with a deprecation date in the past. Now, what we then need to do is go back to our production job and then make sure we do a production job run. So why we want to do this is we need to lock in the state where foo has this deprecation date. If you recall the run prior to this, which would be this one here that we are comparing our CI job against, would have no deprecation date. And that's why DBT is erroring in this other CI job where we are switching from foo to baz. So let's have a look. This production job has run to completion. Okay, so there's a warning here that tells you that you should kind of disable that stuff. This is good, this is what we want. Okay, so now let's go back to the IDE. And then let's change a branch to the other one where we change from foo to baz. Okay, so this is where we swap from foo to baz. If you remember, what I'm going to do is just add some text here so that I can trigger the CI job again. Or let me go ahead and do that, right? So I'm going to just go back to main. Back to main. And I'm going to kind of start again, which is not necessary, but I'll just demonstrate that. So let's create a new branch. Take two, right? Okay. So here we want the complete removal of anything to do with foo. I'm going to rename this to baz, and it should work just fine. And then swap this out for baz. Okay, so this is basically the same stuff that we have in that other PR that I created. Really swap. Right, let's go ahead and do that. And then let's go ahead and create pull requests. Now, this is the same as before, right? But now our CI job will be passing. Let's see what happens. dbt Cloud would have kicked off CI job. Let's go to that CI job and have a look. There you go. So this one here is building, state modified. And then now we are passing instead of failing as before, right? So now you can see we are building BES, we are building bar in our PR schema. Everything is working as expected, unlike this case where it was failing. So here we got a pass. Then we can kind of merge this. And then we can see that we have now completely removed foo and bar. And then definitely when we go back to our production job and rerun it, then the build should build BES and bar without foo anymore and without kind of any errors. There you go. So hit refresh, get the logs in. There you go. So in order to remove kind of all notions of foo, we had to do a couple of things. First, we want to make sure the production job has a deprecation date on a version, and that deprecation date is something in the past. Run the production job, and then we lock in the state where foo has a deprecation date, this one. And then when we run our CI job next, we're going to defer to this job instead of this other job. And then everything works. So again, if you find this a little bit tedious, and that's really because there's something you need to consider, right? If you are adding governance features, then you are almost telling dbt to make your life a little bit harder. So if you don't want to kind of go through this workflow, my recommendation is to kind of not use model governance features unless you absolutely have to. Thank you.